A mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
AI had the time of my life. AI never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick. AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia, Texas State Representative and author of the book Wealth Warrior. This week on the podcast, we are going to discuss how the banks performed in the first week of earnings season. But before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the economic backdrop that is currently taking place and how it is affecting the stock market. On Friday, October 10th, Trump threatened to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese tech imports, and we immediately began to see the market completely deteriorate. The S&P 500 dropped to almost 3%. The Dow Jones dropped to a little over 3%, and the NASDAQ dropped to almost 4%. Meanwhile, Bitcoin was tumbling over the weekend with an 8% drop. Now, Bitcoin doesn't trade like the stock market. Bitcoin is open 24 hours, 7 days a week. So any news that happens over the weekend or in the evenings will impact Bitcoin in real time. On Monday, October 13th, Trump publicly walks back its threat to impose the 100% tariffs. He does this right before the market opens. And that is not by mistake. He knows exactly what he is doing. He knows that if he talks positively about the market, it will work to recover the loss from the previous trading day on Friday. That, my friends, is called market manipulation, and I will say it with my entire chest. In the past, Trump has bragged about how his friends have been able to make money off of short-term bad news. He will come out, say something bad in the market drops, he comes out and says something positive, and the market recovers. There are people that are privy to this information and take advantage of the movements that are set to take place in the market. I want to give you the most recent example of what I am talking about. Prior to Trump coming out with bad news on Friday that he is going to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese tech imports, there was a person that purchased short sale leverage on Bitcoin. It's important for folks to understand that when the market drops or Bitcoin drops, you can place leverage on what may take place if there is bad news in the market. Sometimes people use this leverage as protection in case the market tumbles. Other times, you can just use it as a position, a short-term position, and make a ton of money, most especially if you are privy to what might be taking place in the market. On Friday, the person that places the short position on Bitcoin prior to Trump giving the bad news starts his position with $76 million. Bitcoin tumbles, the position closes out, and the person made a quick $160 million in profit. Wall Street has coined this person, no pun intended, the Trump insider whale. Just as a reminder, insider trading is when someone trades a stock or any type of security based on material, non-public information about that security. In other words, if someone has confidential information that the general public doesn't know, like upcoming earnings, a merger, or something else that could move the stock price, and they trade on it, that is insider trading. The punishment for insider trading can be pretty serious. In the United States, someone convicted of insider trading can face hefty fines and even prison time. Fines can go into the millions of dollars, and prison sentences can be up to 20 years, depending on the severity. I'm not going to hold my breath. If you want a daily dose of economic content, join us over on Patreon at patreon.com/investies. We unpack these topics in real time. For a daily dose of that content, head over to patreon.com/investies. Join the opening bell tier. You can join Patreon for 7 days for free before making an actual commitment. See if the community is beneficial to you.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
We had earnings kick off last week on Tuesday. As I mentioned, the market worked to recover. Let's take a look at how the market performed last week. We had the Dow increase 1.53%, the S&P 500 increase 1.68%, and the NASDAQ increase 2.11%. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the market will fully recover. Even though it has not recovered yet, it is still a bit stressed about the tariff impact and, of course, the government shutdown, not giving us clarity on how the economy is doing via all of the data that is produced by the government. As a reminder, the biggest stress factor for the economy right now is the jobs report. Remember that the jobs report was absolutely terrible last month, and so we have no idea where we are at. Besides the ADP report, which is one of my favorite reports, that is a private report that we will still receive data on. So it's not like we are driving completely blind. I am actually hoping that this government shutdown is a catalyst for improving the way we document all of this data, because it is truly outdated. The banks kicked off earnings season as they always do. This quarter, we kicked off earnings season on Tuesday, and the majority of the banks that have already reported, I have not seen a loser yet. That doesn't mean that one doesn't exist, but the most anticipated banks that have reported have all beat earnings expectations. This is really great news. I do feel like when banks report, this is an instant economic indicator. However, I am a little apprehensive, and here's why. Jimmy Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he is always negative about the market. I mean, always. He is the most pessimistic bank CEO I have ever heard report for years and years and years. That's just who he is. He's positive right now. And so the fact that he is positive makes me a little apprehensive because he's always wrong about the market. So banks did really great. Now we are anticipating Capital One reporting on Tuesday after the market closes. Capital One is one of the lenders that lends out to folks who are the most stretched. In other words, it's folks that don't necessarily have a really great credit score and relatively less funds. So let's see how Capital One reports on Tuesday. As I mentioned, the banks are beating earnings and revenue, and the line item that is really overperforming is their investments. Let's get into that. One of the things I talk about to new investors in our Wealth Warrior course is how important it is for us to have our savings not just in a traditional bank account, a traditional savings account, but to make sure that we have our money in a high yield savings account. A traditional savings account will give you a minuscule return of anywhere from 0.39% to 0.41% right now, where we are with interest rates. If you have it in a high yield savings account, you will get 10 times more than what the traditional bank will give you. And so while these might feel like very small numbers, it is important to try and protect all of the earned income we make from inflation. Money is continuously deteriorating. It is becoming worth less and less. So it is important to protect what we have. I once heard this white guy say that high yield savings accounts were for poor people. And it shocked me because every time I asked friends and family if they had a high yield savings account, mostly everyone would say no. It was very rare when someone was like, yeah, I have a high yield savings account. Everyone was saying no. And so that made me really realize the disparity between understanding financial literacy with very small details like having your money in a high yield savings account. It is worth the 10 to 15, 20 minutes it may take you to open the account and receive a little bit more of a return on your money. I understand what that white man was saying. I was absolutely shocked because my reality was different, but I understood. He was saying that we are not investing our money into securities. And that's a fact. We aren't. 0.5% of Latinos are invested in the stock market, and 1.1% of Black folks are invested. So yes, he's correct. We are not participating. And if we look at the overall market and the participants, I guess it is correct to say that those with less income can potentially have their money in a high yield savings account. But what I have learned from speaking to my community and having over 1,000 people go through Wealth Warrior, the course, is that most of Black and brown folks do not even have their money in a high yield savings account. They are still utilizing the traditional bank account. Now, what does that have to do with banks overperforming in investments? While traditional banks are paying you minuscule on your savings account, they don't just have the money sitting there. They utilize that money to invest into securities. The market has done so well, it has been outperforming, that they are making a return on their investment with your money. This isn't to say that I want you to take all of the money that you have in a savings account and dump it into a brokerage account and begin buying stocks. This is to say that I want to make sure that you have your money out of a traditional bank account and putting it into a high yield savings account. And also, a portion of that should be invested in securities. We need to diversify our money in this way. This is to encourage you that if you started building your portfolio, to continue building it. And if you have not gotten started, please get started. You can learn the basics on how to open a brokerage account and how to pick a publicly traded company by reading my book, Wealth Warrior. And of course, here on Investies, we are providing weekly support with breaking down what is taking place in the market. And we provide additional support over on patreon.com/investies with daily economic content. One of the most common questions I get during Trump's administration, the first go around and now this one, is, aren't you afraid to invest in the market with all of the things that are taking place with Trump in power? And the answer is absolutely not. It's the opposite. We know how much he cares about the market and how his ego is tied to it. This is actually one of the best times to begin investing. But the reality is, and the truth is, that you can ask me any day under any economic circumstances, and I'm going to tell you that starting today is better than starting 10 years from now. It's important for us to just get started. But Trump and Trumpism shouldn't keep us away from investing in the stock market. It should actually be the reason why we should be investing in the stock market. We should also be taking advantage of the economic growth that is taking place, that is typically reserved for the top 10%. To me, I look at investing as a revolutionary act. It is my way to fight the system. And some people may not agree, but the reality is that we live in a capitalist country and we are either the consumer or we are the owner. And I want to ensure that marginalized community members have access to understanding how to become an owner and, of course, feel comfortable and safe along the way. Only about 10% of you have rated us over on Apple Podcasts. And I want to close that gap. If you appreciate the work that we do here on Investies, I would like to ask you for a huge favor. I understand that everyone has a really busy schedule, but if you could please take 5 minutes out of your day, head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this podcast, rate and review the podcast. This helps us reach more listeners. We really appreciate it. I want to read some reviews. We had Crystal Pistol say Investies is top tier. Linda keeps us informed with easy to understand economics. Definitely one of my favorite podcasts, and I highly encourage everyone to listen. Kamazoon says, love Linda and all that she does. I read her book, took her course, and listened to this podcast, and it's an empowering feeling to have a much better understanding of the stock market. She makes it digestible and fun, and it's because of her I have a brokerage account with a few stocks. I probably would have never thought about opening one if it wasn't for her. Thank you, Linda. HVD 1123 says a blessing. Love listening and learning from Investies every week. As a first-gen Latina, I recognize the importance of learning financial best practices and how to build investments, even if it's later in age. I so appreciate learning from someone who is from my community. It's been super helpful as I talk to my financial advisor as I set up accounts. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. This is a Cosmic Standard production. A very special thank you to the team, Asia Simpson, Eliza Smith, and Jacob Winnick.